Welcome back everyone, Mindy with Mindy Egan Design, and today I'm sharing a card that I created using supplies from Tailored Expressions. I had the opportunity to meet Taylor over the summer and she is a wonderful person. I'm so glad to be able to work with her this month with showing some of her new releases. So one of the first things is this plaid background. Now I am in love with this plaid background stamp. You can see it is a red rubber stamp and it comes on this hard plastic sheet, so it sticks to that sheet for you. I put mine in a plastic sleeve. That's just how I store stamps, but this is a really good quality red rubber stamp. So when you're using the Misty tool, which is what I like to do with my stamping, you want to remove that foam insert. To stamp my background, I'm lining up my plaid background stamp with those squares and putting my cardstock in that same spot. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on which lines I have that lined up with, so that way I can get coverage over the entire piece of cardstock. This cardstock is the Sweet Basil cardstock. Tailored Expressions does carry cardstock. They carry lots of supplies, and this was a really nice, thick, heavyweight cardstock. I'm inking up my background with the Peapod ink. All of Taylor's ink pads are named with yummy names, so they're really fun to use, really fun to say. So you'll have to definitely head over to the website and check that out. So I just closed the lid of my Misty and stamped that background, and I just adore this background. I could just leave it just like this and make it a card, but I will take it a few steps further. I may be making a lot of plaid backgrounds because that's how much I love this stamp. So thank you, Taylor, for sending this to me. So what I'm doing for my background here, just to add a little bit of interest, is I took some white ink, added it to a block, and I'm going to flick it onto my background. You could kind of look at it as snow, but I just wanted to have some sort of interest to the background. So I'm just going all around the edges. I knew I was going to cut out a circle out in the middle there, so I want to make sure I'm getting around that area and just getting a lot of little flicks. And then I can put this off on the side to dry and give this a little bit so that way I don't smudge anything. So while that's drying, I'm going to work on the inside piece of my front panel. This is a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock. I'm using it because I am going to do some ink blending. This is a stamp set that's available at Tailored Expressions, and it's called Baby It's Cold Outside. And I wanted to use those snowflakes. So you can see here everything is already cut apart for you. You do not have to do any cutting of these stamps. So I'm adding this to just a white block. Since I'm going to be adding quite a few of these clusters, the Misty would kind of be more of a hassle, more time consuming. So I'm going to try and freehand this. I prepped my cardstock with an anti-static powder tool. And then I'm going to take my stamp, ink it up with the Versamark ink, and start stamping onto this. Now this size of cardstock is about 4 by 5 1/4. And I know my circle piece is going to be kind of in this area where I'm starting off. So since this is clear ink and really hard to see, what I'm going to do is stamp it. I'm going to sprinkle on the embossing powder. So I can see this in person. I can see it when I'm working on it. It's just probably really hard on camera. And I'm going to go around and stamp this for the top portion of my card. And I'll just continue. I'll turn my stamp, add some more embossing powder, and just keep adding this cluster of snowflakes. And once I feel I have a decent amount of snowflakes on here, I'll go ahead and heat emboss that, and that's going to melt that embossing powder. Adding just a few more here just to make sure I'm getting enough coverage. And just heating that up, and I'll have this beautiful snowy background. Now to add just a little bit of color, I didn't want it real dark. I'm going to start off in the middle with some Tumble Glass Distress Oxide ink. This is a really nice light blue ink. So I'm starting off kind of in the center portion and just adding a light pressure with some circular motion. Adding it to where I think that window is going to be about, so that there's no white areas. And then I'll come around that area with some Stormy Sky. I don't typically use this Distress Oxide ink, so I wanted to pull this out, kind of give them all some love. And I'm just going around the outer edge. So it's going to be lighter in the middle with that Stormy Sky on the outside, so it's just a little darker. And I thought this just really completed kind of the woodland look that I wanted to go for with this card. My front panel is now dry, so I'm just lining this up, making sure that I have ink everywhere I need it to be. And I already die cut a circle out of that plaid background. So that is going to be my window. And I have this gorgeous wool felt that Taylor had sent me. This is sugar-coated felt. So it's like a glitter. And the glitter does not come off. But it's a really gorgeous felt. So I'm using the Snowdrift die. And I just die cut out a small piece to make a snowdrift for my window. There was a little bit of fuzzy, so I'm just going to trim that off with my scissors, but it did die cut really well. And it is a little bit longer than my panel, so I will end up trimming that down. But see, this will fit right behind my window there. Now these are two new items as well. These are the Woodland Silhouettes 2. There's a bear and a moose, and I decided to use the moose because a little joke is where I'm originally from, they have a moose roaming around. He's traveled quite a bit since then, but there was a moose roaming around in people's backyards and their fields, so I just had to choose the moose. I die cut the moose out of some chocolate truffle cardstock, and I'm also going to use that cardstock for my sentiment. So this sentiment, Wishes, is from the Make It Merry stamp set. I really liked the font. I just wanted a little bit of a sentiment to go with my Merry that I have die cut. So I'm lining this up on my Misty, and I'm using the grid lines on my Misty door to line this up straight. I'm not too concerned if it's crooked because I can always trim it straight, but I'll try and do the best I can. So I did prep this with an anti-static powder tool, and I'll ink this up with my Versamark ink, close the door, and push down to stamp it. Just got to remember, because these are foam mounted stamps, you want to remove that foam insert from your Misty tool if you are using a stamping tool of any sort. Because it already has the cushion on the stamp, you don't need any more cushion to it. And then I will just heat emboss this with white embossing powder. And then I can go ahead and trim this down to just a small strip. So here is how my card is looking so far. I need to attach my moose. That is going to be in the foremost front of the circle, of my circle window, I should say. And I'm just going to be doing the hooves. I'm going to take, I like to put a Post-it note down so I don't get my sticky glue all over the place. And I'm just adding some liquid glue, little dots to the hooves, and attaching that to the inside of that window. I didn't need any on that hoof that's kind of picked up, so I just wiped that off, and you can't even tell it was there. So once those are attached, I'll go ahead and attach my moose to my sugar-coated felt. So I'm going to add a little more liquid glue all around the bottom part of my circle, and just getting it lined up where I want my hill to be. Attach that down, and the felt does have a little bit of a lift to it. So it's going to be, that's where I'm going to decide to bring in some foam tape for my backer, just kind of even that out. And I do like the look of the window being up a little bit more from my background. So I have this Big Mama roll of foam tape, And I'm going to add this all around the back of my card and to the side, and also some little strips to my mousse. That way everything is going to be even. I'm not going to add any foam tape to that felt piece because that felt already has that cushion to it, like I said. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the liquid glue so that it all attaches nicely. And then just give that a good push down. And I'll be able to attach this to a white card base. So I just have a strip of white cardstock, adding a score line and folding it in half, so it's going to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And this is the point where I realized I forgot to trim my plaid panel down. So my picture might be a little bit different than this card is because I forgot in the video while I was doing this to trim my panel down. But that is completely fine with me. It still looks really great. I have more plaid to look at, so I'm happy. So I just added some tape runner to the back of that and attached that to the front of the card. And then I have this Mary that I die cut, excuse me, from some glitter cardstock. And I just added a little bit of liquid glue there, add to the bottom of my front panel. And I will also go ahead and add some foam tape behind the wishes sentiment and just pop that up a little bit for a little more dimension. So I really hope you enjoyed this card. I'm absolutely in love with this release. I have more to show you. I will have all the supplies listed on my blog and also in the video description as well. If you did enjoy it, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and I'll catch you in the next video.